coming off of a stellar season under his watch, along with Tom Coughlin, two guys from the Bill Parcells coaching tree, the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Doug Marrone, here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Coach?
Rich, I'm doing great. You know, we just got done coming off the field in an OTA, and you know, it's kind of tough and rough. And then, you know, the intro got me going. I'm ready to go.
You ready to hit? You know what, Coach? People say that they want to run through walls for me, so I understand what you're saying. You know?
Exactly.
You know? What's your favorite Parcells story, Coach? I'd love to hear him from somebody who's been around him.
I just think, you know, I obviously I've met with Coach Parcells, and you know, just trying to get insight and, you know, learn how to be a better head coach and things of that nature. And you know, I learned that when Coach has it and he says, "I got it," that means it's time for you to shut your mouth and just listen. Don't just keep going on. So when he goes, I'll start a story. I'll say, "Coach, you know, how would you handle this?" And I go on to it, and he goes, "I got it." And that's the cue to shut your mouth and just listen.
How long did it take you to learn that, though? Around him,
pretty quickly, because I'm one of those people. I think that, you know, I went there to gain information. A lot of times when people try to get information, sometimes they wind up talking too much. So I just try to, you know, just ask the question and really listen. I think that, you know, it's a trait that I was fortunate. You know, my parents brought me up that way. You know, God gave you one mouth and two ears to listen twice as much as you talk. So, I kind of learned that, and it's helped me with, you know, some of the coaches that have been through this for a long time, and I've learned a lot by just keeping my mouth shut and listening.
Now, that said, Coach, you have quite a locker room filled with alpha males down there. I mean,
oof, you're telling me.
So how do you instill that in such a young dynamic? I think that you guys exemplify that in the NFL, and alpha males like Jalen Ramsey, just obviously for one. How do you instill that sensibility in your locker room?
You know, Rich, it's tough and challenging from a standpoint of, you know, the way that, you know, maybe yourself or myself, the way we were raised in the profession, and guys that, or coaches that we played for, or, you know, when I first got started in the league. And I think that, you know, when I left the New Orleans Saints to go back to Syracuse to take the head job there, you know, then I went back out into the communities and the homes of a lot of these young men, and just realized that, you know, with social media and things, you know, things are different. And I think it's a fine line of letting your players be who they are, and at the same point, you know, making sure that we do have team chemistry and that team comes first. So, you know, basically trying to, you know, manage that situation is something that I think, you know, all of us are challenged with in this day and age.
Does last year's sit down of Leonard Fournette fall in that category at all?
That's kind of what, you know, my past has been, and you know, just trying to make sure that the rules apply to everyone. Again, it was an unfortunate incident, and you know, one that we all can learn from, including myself. You know, I'm continuously learning. But I got a funny story for you. So
go for it.
One of the players that you mentioned before, you know, had come out and said something, you know, publicly, and, you know, kind of bulletin board material. And so I just, you know, I bring him in and I say, you know, hey, listen, what about those comments? How do you feel? It's like, well, you know, Coach, I was just so fired up, and, you know, I just felt like saying that, and I just how I feel, and, you know, maybe it's something that, you know, I shouldn't have said, but it just came out of my mouth. And then all of a sudden he goes, but you know what, Coach? You know, the way I look at it, you probably want to say it, and you can't because you're the head coach, so I'm saying it for you. I said, whoa, don't be turning that around on me. You know what I'm saying? And going like that. But, you know, it's one of those things. I think it's a fine line. You're always trying to educate, you know, but at the same sense, you don't want, like you said, we've got a lot of talented kids. You know, you don't want to, you know, limit their expression.
You're talking, so Jalen Ramsey is your de facto new...
I'm not mentioning any names there, Rich.
He's your new spokesman for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Honestly, I know that's what you're thinking. I said, yeah, that's what I'm thinking, but come on.
Now,
you know, and you know what? We have to learn at times to embrace that as a team. If someone says something or someone believes in something, then, you know, we're all accountable to you know, back that player up. And that's something that I think I try to find a positive, whereas I think a lot of times some people see a negative in it.
So Doug Marrone, Jacksonville Jaguars head coach here on the Rich Eisen Show. I did think of you and Tom Coughlin after those Ramsey comments prior to the AFC Championship game, all fired up coming back from Pittsburgh. I really did think of you two guys and what you were going to say to him after all that. And then obviously everything was copacetic going into that game because of how well you played in New England. How often do you play back that AFC Championship game in your head, driving to work or just staring up at the ceiling or any moment in time, Coach?
I mean, it's so difficult for me. Sometimes they have those replays on TV, and I get frustrated with myself because I think, I look at myself and say, what could I have done a better job for our team? How could I put them in better position? What could have done? What maybe I could have done differently? And I think, it's a point. It's an issue that's in all of our stomachs, and it's tough. I mean, just mention it and you feel that same type of pain, that you felt afterwards. But I think it's important, especially for this team, like you said, there is talent here. It is a young football team, and we'll think of, the one challenge that we have is, we're not that team that we were at the end of the year where we were playing. We've got to go back and learn lessons from the past. But let's make sure we learn a lesson of how hard we worked at this time of year in training camp and during the season, and that's what's going to get us to a position that we hope, where we can, win this AFC South and move on. But there's a lot of work to be done in between.
So what do you look back and think you could change or wish was different, other than obviously the final score?
I mean, there's a lot of things, from an aggressive style. There's so many things that you'll question, and not just because it was the AFC Championship game. I think. I do that to myself after every game. When win or lose for me is difficult because I always think that, we could have done a better job. And I have a hard time with the way I'm wired of, really appreciating it. And I have to force myself, to make sure that I do a good job, congratulating the players to do a good job. And, I know that, when they don't, they obviously, they're going to hear it from me. And when I don't do a good job, I think it's important to being the head coach to stand up there and say, hey, listen, I've got to do a better job, and it starts with me.
Well, in terms of that game, Coach, and I'd love to give you a chance to respond because so many people were saying the way that the play calling went down at the end of the first half of that game was indicative of the confidence you have in your quarterback and Blake Bortles in trying to win a football game and not trusting him or something along those lines. How do you respond to that?
Well, I respond to it this way. I mean, we go into the game with a plan prior to. I don't think it's a matter of the trust or what you want to do. I do have a history of playing against that team, the one that, New England that we're speaking about. I've done it a couple of different ways. I just felt that, I think the critical point was, after the timeout, the clock ran quick and we wound up, getting a complete pass where we're in scoring position, and then it wound up being nullified with the delay of game. That hurt us. And, you had the lead. You wanted to go in. You wanted to make sure that we were in good shape after we made that mistake. And then coming out, we felt like we did a good job early on with our run play action game and felt that we really needed to run the football and get that going, and we just didn't do a good enough job of that.
Well, so how is Bortles a different quarterback, if at all, from when you first found him so far now?
Well, the first time really putting in the system was the two games, or really I think it was 3 or 4 games with Coach Hackett, and it's difficult when you're trying to implement a system, but there's a system already in place. So, last year was the first time that we had the full system in place with him. And, early on in training camp, obviously there were some struggles, and he really came back from that. He's a resilient kid. Probably the greatest characteristic is his toughness and being able to handle, all the noise on the outside. And then really probably around from the Cincinnati game on, you really saw him, getting confidence in the system, his teammates getting a lot of confidence in him. And, we've always felt that he had the ability to do it. And he really started to play well. And in year 2, the way we started out now, he has a very good grasp, and we're expecting, obviously, better things from him this year.
A couple more minutes left with Doug Marrone, head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, here on the Rich Eisen Show. How far can this team go, Coach?
Well, I'll tell you what, if we don't do a good job right now creating this foundation, it's going to be tough to go far at all. And I think that's the most important thing, and one we've been driving home with the players, about our communication and, our team chemistry and our discipline and structure of how we want to get things done, how we want to look when we turn the tape on. that's the other thing. If you said, what have you learned from Coach Parcells, is that you never start off, where you left off. You always have to start from the beginning. And that's been a big thing that we've been preaching to our players, of creating this foundation of hard work and what we want to be, by what's on that tape. So, it's a challenge, and it's one we're working through each and every day to make sure that we put on the tape what we want.
All right, now how would Jalen Ramsey answer that question?
He's ready to go.
How would he answer the question about how far you can go, Coach? How do you think he'd answer it?
I can't speak for Jalen. I always tell
speaks
Jalen,
for you.
He doesn't speak from you. I'm not going to speak for you, and you're not going to speak for me. So we've already set that up. But again, I know that he's not here with us now, but we keep in touch, and he's working extremely hard, and he's looking forward to an outstanding year.
All right, Coach. When was the last time you spoke with Jalen? I know he's not there right now at OTAs.
Last week I touch base with him each week, and there's enough stuff of him online and working with his dad, so we know he's working hard, and he knows what's expected of him when he gets here. All
right, Coach. You take care of yourself. I love our chat. Let's do it again real soon.
No problem, Rich. Thank you for having me on.
You got it. You got it. It's Doug Marrone.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.